Okay, so we are starting the Herzog and DeMeuron um, signal box building, which is going to be a lot of fun, I think. Really what we're focusing on is the actual facade system. So what you're seeing here is a series of horizontal louvers, right? It's just a singular horizontal panel that in the center revolves and bends outward a little bit, right? So it gives you these little slivers of, light and permeability to the facade itself. So the reason I chose this one is because it could potentially directly relate to some of your design projects right now if you so choose, because of the way that it blocks sunlight. So in this location, under Exploration 8, Facade Logic Modifiers, you'll see this base file. That base file basically has, it's really just a simple little box, and it looks like this. So this box is going to simulate sort of like a window system that you might have in a residential application, okay? I know that we're kind of using a building archetype for a commercial building, but we're kind of doing it at a residential scale, which may or may not really be appropriate, but it's important to know how to construct something like this, right? And it doesn't really matter which way you do it, but something that has this kind of logic and sequencing. So the thing that I wanted to show you is the facade itself, when it's on, and I'm going to show you the final product here, is pretty intriguing, right? If you look at this facade and you think about how much you can see through it, right? If you, what are your opinion? What is your opinion on this right now? Does this seem like a relatively transparent facade, like you can see through it pretty well? Generally, yes. Don't worry about the fact that it's kind of triangulated. The fact that I had to use mesh colors to make it white so that I could show this preview, just basically it blocks it off to save RAM, essentially. It's actually a much smoother curve in reality, and you'll see that when we do it. The thing that I really wanted to show you is how cool it is when you start to follow the sun path. So approximately in the morning, you're starting, that's an old exploration of mine, but you're starting sort of coming up from behind, and if you're in the summer, you're all the way up here. If you're in the winter, you're probably more like down here, and you're capturing just a little bit of sunlight all day long until even early afternoon, and it's all gone. In the summer, you're blocking it from really high pretty much the entire day. And yet still, you've got a facade that's pretty wide open, right? So it's an intriguing design. It solves a lot of your design problems. I'm not saying take this, go use it. I'm saying think about things in this way, because, well, some of you might, but don't tell Iggy you got it from me. So anyway, it's just really cool because the idea behind how you build it is actually extraordinarily simple. So real quick from you guys, what are your thoughts on how you build it? Let me turn on the ruled surfaces so that you can see it a little better.
Steel?
Well, no, I'm talking about in Grasshopper.
What we just did.
Well, no, actually. So this one is without an attractor point. I showed you that because I'm hoping that we can get to a point where we add an attractor point onto the end of it. This one is just a it has the same rotation bend in every single one.
Draw the curve that is between the curve and smaller than both sides.
What's that?
Like you draw the curve, then around those curves the square is smaller than the far away from the curved one.
It's a similar principle. Okay, so the way that I built this, and this is all just preview before we get started, right? The way that I built this is actually, I think, kind of interesting because I built it in such a way that this curve right here actually defines the definition of the the whole thing, really. So let me bring this down here and pull this over. So just so you guys can kind of see what's happening here, I'm going to pull it sort of down to the side a little bit. And this curve, essentially, as I modify it, modifies the rotational value of the facade itself. Okay, so you don't have to necessarily modify your geometry in Grasshopper using numbers. You can use profile curves and external geometry to define profiles that you then use to modify. Kind of interesting, right? So the key, though, I want you to think about and think ahead to how you begin to construct it, knowing what we know already. Because with the exception of maybe one or two little tools, and I'm not going to show you what I used, but I'll show you the size of the definition. Here it is right here. With the exception of maybe one or two other tools, I didn't really do anything all that different than you've seen before. So what do you think I used? Take a look at it closely from the side. As I pull this back, it's not just extending forward. It's actually peeling upwards the exact same way that it would if you physically took a flat rectilinear louver and you bent it up. What's very important in order to do that?
Z-axis.
Sort of, kind of. The z-axis of the panel itself, yes. Right? So if you think about it, the length, or rather the height of this panel here is exactly the same as the length or width of the panel here. So how did I do that? It's the same physical motion that you would do in order to build it in real life. You'd grab it at the center and you would pull it up, which is an action that's similar to doing what in three-dimensional space? Rotate.
Okay.
I rotated it. So in order to do that, I took this panel, and let me turn on all the geometry here so that you can really see what's going on. Give you a preview. I created a series of rotational planes along points along the curves that the panels generated originally. Then I mapped two curves and one that was readily modifiable in Rhino, and I measured the distance between the original points and the new points, which gave me 5 numbers. Do I have 5 there? Yeah, gave me 5 numbers that have a sort of arcing proportional relationship to one another, and those numbers get fed into a rotator. That rotator then just pulls the points out from where they were, and then I remap the curve, and I loft it. Making sense? You guys excited to build it?
Yeah.
All right. So this is what we're going to do then. Open up this file, and then you should, I think, only have one of these, and then open up a fresh Grasshopper file, unless you want to build it into the one you had opened before. But yeah, open up a fresh Grasshopper file. We'll get started in a moment.